Over the years climbing the corporate ladder, I've learned something the hard way. One bad employer can set you back years in your career and even ruin it completely. And that's why it's so important to be really careful about the roles that you say yes to. After spending years coaching thousands of people to land their dream jobs, I've seen it all. So today, I'm going to share with you the biggest red flags to look for and the signs that the job just isn't worth it. No matter where you are in your job search, you're likely to encounter low-quality employers. Spotting red flags early can save you time and frustration. So to start, the first major red flag is when an interviewer asks illegal questions. These are completely inappropriate in an interview setting and often related to the gender, marital status, race, or family plans. Now, what does this actually look like in an interview setting? It might sound like an interviewer asking,
"Are you planning to start a family, or do you have kids, or are you married?"
These types of questions are unprofessional and can be a way to secretly discriminate against you. For instance, if they find out you have kids or you plan to, they might assume that you'll need too much time off or won't be available to work overtime. It's all just assumptions that they could use against you for them not to hire you. Another illegal topic is personal things like religion. So let's say that you casually mention you're volunteering at a community center and the interviewer assumes it's connected to a religious organization. If they ask,
"Will you need time off for religious holidays, or does your faith affect your ability to work during the week?"
These are inappropriate and illegal questions. I know they sound silly, but I've heard all of the stories before. Questions like this should always be directly related to your ability to do the job and nothing more. Another common question that's even illegal in many states is to ask about your past compensation, like, what did you make in your last role? A lot of states have actually banned this because your pay shouldn't be based on what you were earning in the past, but the value that you bring to your new role, especially if you were underpaid before. It's true that many hiring managers don't have formal interview training, but that doesn't make these kinds of questions okay. Ignorance is not an excuse. If you're asked something inappropriate, the best thing that you can do is to politely deflect and steer the conversation back to the questions about the job. But if they get upset or they keep pushing with those kinds of questions, that's a huge red flag. It's a clear sign that this might not be the kind of employer that you want to work for. The second warning sign is if the job doesn't match the description. Imagine this. You're reading a job posting, it sounds perfect, so you apply. But when you get to the interview, they hit you with,
"Oh, by the way, we're actually looking for this right now."
and what they're describing is a completely different role. Then they promise, if you stick with this for 6 to 9 months, we're going to move you into the position that you originally applied for. This is also a huge red flag. And honestly, the chances of you ever shifting into the role that you wanted are really slim. It's sad. But some employers use this bait and switch tactic just to get people in the door. If they're hiding the reality of the job, it usually means that they're struggling to find someone or anyone willing to take it. And if that's the case, it's a sign that the job is bad news. Do not take it. Now, before we move on to the next red flag, if you're wondering what type of job is truly the best fit for you, I've got something to help. So check out the link in the description for my free 2-minute quiz to find out. It's really quick, it's easy, and it gives you clarity on your job search. Now, the third red flag is a trap that can seriously stunt your career growth and take a serious toll on your mental health. And it's when the job's expectations don't match the compensation. So you know the kind of job I'm talking about. The ones where they want you to have years of experience, take on a ton of responsibilities, but then offer to pay you peanuts. These roles often come with unrealistic expectations that lead to terrible work-life balance. So for example, let's say that you're interviewing for a manager level role and you've done similar work before. Now they expect you to handle twice the amount of responsibilities, manage a much larger team, but offer you $20,000 to $30,000 less than what you should be earning and what the market pays. Here's the thing, you deserve to earn what you're worth, but low quality employers don't see it that way. They don't want to pay fair market wages, and they usually expect way too much in return for subpar compensation and benefits. To make it worse, they'll try to lure you in with promises that sound great, but are almost impossible to get. Maybe it's a quick promotion or some fancy perks or a big raise if you hit certain goals. But let's be real. Both you and they know it's not going to happen. The bar is set so high that hardly anyone ever makes it. And even if they do, it's only a rare few. These companies are full of micromanaging and stress. So if you come across this sign in an interview, run. The fourth red flag is a little harder to spot, and that's high turnover. These are the companies that just can't seem to hold on to good employees. One of the easiest ways to get a sense of this is by asking the interviewer, why is this position open? If they can't give you a clear, reasonable answer, or if they say that everyone else was fired or they quit for really vague reasons, that's a big warning sign. You can also check reviews on sites like Glassdoor. Keep in mind that most people leave reviews when they're upset, so take them with a grain of salt. But if you start seeing the same complaints over and over, like a constant micromanagement or being forced to work a lot of overtime, that's worth paying attention to. You can even use those comments to guide your questions in the interview. Another thing to watch out for is if the company has a reputation for firing people without warning. That's definitely a situation to tread carefully with. And at the end of the day, it's all about reading between the lines, looking for patterns in the reviews and asking smart questions during the interview to make sure the employer is a good fit for you. Warning sign number 5 is if the company isn't funded. You can usually get a sense of this by looking at how stable they seem. Are they well established, or do they look like they're just starting out? Being new isn't always a bad thing, but even startups need solid financial backing. If they're telling you things like,
"We can't offer competitive pay right now, but we'll make it up later,"
that's a big red flag. If they can't afford to pay you now, or if they can't afford to pay you fairly, chances are that they can't afford to give you the tools or the resources that you're going to need to succeed either. Another thing to watch out for is how the company presents itself. So check out their website. Does it look professional, or does it seem rushed and basic? What about their social media? Are they active, or does it look like no one's touched it in months? Do they have client reviews and partnerships or testimonials that show that they're legit? And here's the big one. If they're a remote company but expect you to provide your own laptop or software or even a business email, that's a huge red flag. Companies with solid funding don't ask their employees to cover basic job expenses. Pay attention to how they talk about their finances too. If they dodge questions about budgets or funding or their long-term plans, that's worth noting. A well-funded company is usually upfront about how they plan to grow and to support their employees. At the end of the day, good companies invest in their people. They'll give you the tools, the training, and the resources to do your best work. If that's not happening, it's probably a sign to walk away. Warning sign number 6 is a company that has unusually high response rates. At first, you might think,
"Wow, this is really great. They're super responsive to candidates."
but there's actually a red flag hiding in that. Most reputable companies, especially larger ones, are very selective in their hiring process. So for example, they might only reach out to 5% or less of the applicants for a position. Now, if you find a company that's responding to 75% or more of their applicants, you have to wonder why. These companies often rely on a numbers game because they know that their opportunity isn't that strong, and they're casting a wide net in hopes of finding anyone who will take the job. And as we all know, the throw it on the wall and see what sticks approach to hiring usually only attracts desperate employees who won't stick around for long. And lastly, warning sign number 7 is being asked to do free work. In most states, requiring unpaid work is actually illegal. Whether it's an internship or contracted work, you're supposed to be paid or fairly compensated for the value that you provide. If an employer asks you to put together a presentation or to solve a business case, you need to ask yourself, how is this going to help their business? If it's a generic case study designed to see how you approach problems, especially under pressure, that's one thing. But if they're going to give you a real business challenge that they need solved, that's a major red flag. Unfortunately, some companies will have candidates complete actual business work during the interview process. And once the interview's over, they're going to send you on your way, but keep and use the work that you did. If you're asked to prepare something that clearly benefits the company, don't be afraid to ask why they're requesting it. On the flip side, if it's a generic case study unrelated to their business, it might just be part of the interview process, and that is fine. I've seen legitimate cases where candidates worked on exercises, like solving a general business problem, and it turned out to be a great experience. But if this request comes alongside other red flags, it's a sign to tread carefully. As a job seeker, it's easy to feel pressure and to be tempted to take whatever opportunity comes your way. But not every job is worth your time or energy. By watching out for these warning signs, you can avoid falling into traps and focus on opportunities that truly align with your goals and your values. Remember, the right role is totally out there, and settling for less only holds you back from achieving the career that you deserve. If you found these tips useful, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.